The X-ray behind me shows holes where there should be solid tissue. Liver damage so severe it looks like someone took a shotgun to it from the inside. The patient was 67 years old, Martha Henderson from Salem, Oregon. Healthiest woman you'd ever meet, until she started following doctor's orders. "What changed 6 months ago?" I asked her daughter in the hallway outside the ICU. "Nothing, doctor. Mom just started taking those good vitamins. The ones you doctors always say to take." That conversation happened 3 years ago. I've documented 43 similar cases since then. All patients over 60, all taking the same vitamin, all with liver damage so severe it defied medical explanation, until I figured out what was really happening. The smell of hospital disinfectant still triggers the memory of that morning, when I realized I'd been slowly killing people with my advice. October 23, 2021. I was reviewing labs for my morning surgery when the numbers stopped making sense. ALT levels at 340, AST at 298, bilirubin through the roof. These were liver failure numbers, but the patient had no history of alcohol abuse, no hepatitis, no genetic disorders, nothing that should cause this level of destruction. Room 218 held James Morrison, 71, retired Boeing engineer from Everett, Washington. Built airplanes for 40 years, never missed a day of work, never had a serious illness in his life. But his liver was shutting down like a factory running out of power. "Mr. Morrison," I said, pulling up a chair next to his bed, "I need to understand what's changed in your routine recently. Any new medications? Any supplements?" He shook his head weakly. "Just the vitamins, doctor. Same ones I've been taking since my cardiologist said they'd help my heart. Vitamin E, 400 units a day. Been taking them religiously for 2 years. The word religiously hit me like a punch to the chest. I'd been the one who recommended vitamin E to my cardiac patients. Standard practice, good for the heart, natural antioxidant, safe as mother's milk, we told them. But James Morrison's liver was dying, and the only thing that had changed was following medical advice. I spent that entire weekend digging through medical journals, research papers, case studies. What I found made my hands shake as I turned the pages. There's something called hepatotoxicity that happens when fat-soluble vitamins accumulate in liver tissue. After age 60, the liver's ability to process and eliminate these compounds drops by nearly half. But the absorption rate stays the same. The math is simple and deadly. You're taking in more than you can eliminate, and the excess builds up like sludge in your liver cells. Study after study showed increased mortality rates in adults over 65 taking high-dose vitamin E. But these studies were buried in obscure journals, funded by grants that got mysteriously canceled, published in formats that practicing physicians never see. The vitamin industry is worth $47 billion. They're not about to let a few dead seniors impact their bottom line. Mrs. Henderson's case broke my heart because she trusted the system completely. Took her vitamins every morning with her oatmeal and black coffee. Read every health newsletter, followed every recommendation, did everything right according to medical wisdom, and it slowly poisoned her from the inside out. Her daughter brought me a shoebox full of vitamin bottles after the funeral. She spent $300 a month on these, she said, tears streaming down her face. $300 to die. I started keeping track of every patient over 60 who came through my practice with unexplained liver problems. The pattern was so consistent it was frightening. Vitamin E supplementation for 6 months to 3 years. Dosages between 200 and 800 IU daily. All of them following their doctor's orders. All of them getting sicker while thinking they were getting healthier. The worst part was realizing how many colleagues were seeing the same thing, but not connecting the dots. Dr. Patricia Williams at Oregon Health called me one afternoon. "Sam," she said, "I've got 5 patients this month with liver enzyme levels that don't make sense. All over 60. all healthy otherwise. You seeing anything like this? I was seeing plenty. But until that moment, I hadn't realized we were dealing with an epidemic. Most people walk away when stories get this heavy. The fact that you're still listening, that means something. Hit subscribe. I've got more to tell. The pharmaceutical companies have known about this for years. I found internal memos dating back to 2016 showing they were aware of increased hepatotoxicity in older adults. But instead of changing their recommendations, they funded studies designed to muddy the water. Studies that excluded participants over 65. Studies that used lower doses than what's actually sold in stores. Studies that ran for shorter periods than it takes for liver damage to show up. Corporate-sponsored confusion masquerading as medical research. The FDA has a database called VAERS that tracks adverse events from supplements. When I filed a Freedom of Information Act request, I found over 200 reports of liver damage associated with vitamin E in adults over 60. 200 reports that had been classified as inconclusive and buried in bureaucratic filing cabinets. Meanwhile, Walgreens and CVS keep stocking their shelves with the same supplements, the same dosages that are slowly killing our parents and grandparents, the same recommendations that well-meaning doctors keep giving to patients who trust them with their lives. I started reaching out to families of patients who died from unexplained liver failure, asking permission to review medical records, asking about supplement use. The pattern held in 90% of cases. High-dose vitamin E supplementation in the months or years leading up to liver failure. But because it happens gradually, it gets attributed to natural aging or idiopathic liver disease. Nobody connects it to the vitamins because nobody wants to believe that something sold as healthy could be deadly. The medical system we trust is built on research that's decades old and fundamentally flawed. The safe dosage recommendations for vitamin E were established in the 1970s based on studies of young, healthy adults. Nobody bothered to study how these compounds affect aging livers. Nobody asked whether the margin of safety changes as we get older. We just assumed that what's good for a 30-year-old is equally good for a 70-year-old. That assumption is killing people. Dr. Maria Santos at UC San Francisco became my research partner when I reached out to hepatologists across the country. She'd been tracking similar cases and had access to liver biopsy data that painted a clear picture. Vitamin E accumulation in hepatocytes. Cellular damage patterns consistent with chronic toxicity. Inflammatory responses that were manageable in younger patients, but devastating in older adults. Her research showed that the therapeutic window for vitamin E narrows dramatically after age 60. What's protective at 30 becomes harmful at 65. Not because older people are weaker, but because their physiology has changed in ways that medical school never taught us. The liver's phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways slow down. The elimination half-life of fat-soluble vitamins increases. The margin between helpful and harmful disappears like morning fog in the Oregon sun. Robert Chen, 68, retired from the Postal Service, came to see me after his daughter read an article I'd published in the Journal of Geriatric Medicine. His story was heartbreakingly familiar. Vitamin E for 3 years on his doctor's recommendation. Liver enzymes climbing steadily. Fatigue getting worse. Sleep problems. Brain fog. All dismissed as normal aging by his primary care physician. "Doctor," he said, sitting across from my desk, "I just want to know if stopping these vitamins will help. I don't want to sue anybody. I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to feel better." We stopped his vitamin E immediately and started monitoring his liver function monthly. Within 6 months, his enzymes normalized. Within a year, he felt 20 years younger. The fatigue lifted. The brain fog cleared. The joint pain he'd attributed to getting older vanished completely. Robert wasn't aging. He was being poisoned by medical advice. Someone once told me there are rules that change after 60. One of them says that sacrifice without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. I wish I'd known that 30 years ago. If you want to know what those rules are, it's in the description. The hardest case to stomach was discovering my own liver damage. During my annual physical in 2022, my doctor found elevated liver enzymes, ALT at 89, AST at 94. He wanted to run tests for hepatitis, check for autoimmune conditions, order an ultrasound. But I knew what it was before he finished speaking. I'd been taking 800 IU of vitamin E daily for 5 years. The same supplement I'd been recommending to my cardiac patients. The same poison I'd been telling people was good for their hearts. I was slowly killing myself with my own medical advice. I stopped the vitamin E that day. Within 3 months, my liver enzymes started dropping. Within 6 months, they were normal. Within a year, I felt better than I had in decades. The chronic fatigue I'd blamed on long surgical hours disappeared. The memory problems I'd attributed to stress vanished. The muscle aches I thought were just part of getting older went away completely. I wasn't getting older. I was being poisoned by a system that prioritizes profit over patient safety. The medical establishment responded to my research with predictable skepticism. The Council for Responsible Nutrition, which represents the supplement industry, released statements questioning my methodology. They funded counter-studies that found no correlation between vitamin E and liver damage. But their studies excluded anyone over 55 and ran for only 6 months. When I pointed out these obvious flaws publicly, the pressure intensified. Questions about my research integrity, suggestions that I was being alarmist, hints that my hospital privileges might be reviewed if I continued spreading unfounded concerns about supplements. The vitamin industry has deep pockets and powerful lobbying groups. They've convinced the public that natural equals safe. They've convinced doctors that more is better. They've convinced families that expensive vitamins are worth the cost because they prevent disease. But after 60, many of these supplements don't prevent disease, they cause it. The physiology changes, the rules change. What helped you at 40 hurts you at 65. Martha Rodriguez, 63, started taking vitamin E after reading an article in AARP magazine about heart health. Within 18 months, she was in liver failure. David Thompson, 69, began supplementing after his cardiologist recommended it, following a mild heart attack. 2 years later, his liver was shutting down. Susan Williams, 72, took vitamin E religiously because her daughter bought her the best vitamins money could buy. She died waiting for a liver transplant that never came. Each family asked the same question: how could something healthy be so dangerous? The answer is that it's not healthy for people over 60. The research we base our recommendations on assumes that a 65-year-old liver functions like a 25-year-old liver. That assumption is deadly wrong. I've now documented 67 cases of vitamin E-induced liver damage in adults over 60. 67 families who trusted their doctors. 67 people who followed medical advice and paid the ultimate price. The supplement industry knows this is happening. They have internal safety reports showing increased adverse events in older adults. But they continue marketing high-dose formulations to seniors because that's where the money is. Adults over 60 spend more on vitamins than any other age group. They're the most trusting customers, the most compliant patients. the easiest targets for products that promise to extend life but actually shorten it. Everything I learned about patience, about sacrifice, about trust, it's all in something called the 60-year rule. 9 rules that reverse after 60. I wish someone had given me this 20 years ago. The link is right below this video. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires courage. Courage to question medical advice that seems too good to be true. Courage to ask your doctor about liver function tests if you're taking supplements. Courage to demand research that includes people your age, not just young, healthy adults. Courage to stop taking something just because an expert recommended it. Your liver doesn't regenerate like it did when you were younger. The damage from vitamin toxicity can be permanent. The scarring can't be undone. But it can be prevented if we start telling the truth about what supplements do to aging bodies. I'm 71 years old. I've been practicing medicine for 38 years. I've learned that the most dangerous lies are the ones that sound like medical wisdom. Take your vitamins. More is better. Natural is always safe. Sometimes the vitamins are poison. Sometimes more is deadly. Sometimes natural kills you faster than anything artificial ever could. The X-ray behind me belongs to a patient I couldn't save, but maybe sharing her story will save someone else. That has to be enough, because staying silent would make me complicit in an epidemic that's hiding in plain sight, in medicine cabinets across America, in the trust between doctors and patients, in the assumption that what's good for the young is safe for the old. That assumption is killing our parents, our grandparents, ourselves. It's time to tell the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable, even when it challenges everything we thought we knew, even when it means admitting that the medical advice we've been giving for decades is slowly poisoning the people who trust us most.